You had such deep conviction to go and put a sizable amount of money, right? Most people who found Bitcoin, they either didn't have a lot of capital or they didn't have the ability to go and buy millions of dollars of Bitcoin. Why have you guys held on this entire time? There's been volatility, all this stuff. Like, what has kept you guys so convicted since the very early days until today?
So we still think it's really early. We think Bitcoin's gold 2.0. It will disrupt gold, so its market cap has to be 10 trillion or more, because that's the market cap of gold. So Bitcoin's hovering around 1 trillion now. We still think it's at least conservatively a 10x from here. So even at 35,000, it feels like a really good buying opportunity long term, because we think at a $10 trillion market cap, we think one Bitcoin will be worth $500,000. And we think that could happen inside this decade, definitely the next 5 years. So we're hodlers at least until $500,000. And then at that point, you won't even have to sell because you can borrow off it or whatever.
Right. Yeah, the thesis hasn't really played out yet. We're like 1/12 of the way there. And when we wrote that, that thought piece in August, Bitcoin was at 13,000. It hit, I think, 64.
That was this August.
This August, you know. So the story's really just playing out. It's just getting started.
And when we came to, so we keynoted Bitcoin 2013, the price of Bitcoin was $130. I think the market cap was under 3 billion.
3 billion market cap. That's like a small, you know, shitcoin today.
Yeah. So, you know, we've seen this, but yeah, like Cameron said, our gold 2.0 thesis is that Bitcoin disrupts gold, and we think that's the conservative bull case. Obviously, Bitcoin's a lot more than gold. It's an open source project that continues to evolve and can do so much more. It can become the global reserve digital currency of the world, of the galaxy. Like, when we get to Mars, what's the currency going to be on Mars? It's going to be dollars? No, it's going to be Bitcoin.
One of the things that's really fascinating about the gold comparison is most people hold that $10 trillion kind of threshold as that's the market cap of gold. But what we've actually seen is that gold's market cap is likely to contract as Bitcoin's grows, right? And so there's a chance that actually the kind of flippening of gold and Bitcoin happens somewhere sub 10 trillion gold. And so to your guys' point, like, that likely happens in this decade if the Bitcoin thesis plays out.
Yeah, and that's like small bull case, right? Like, Bitcoin is software, gold is hardware. You can do so much more with software and iterate at such a faster clip. So I think 10 trillion is sort of like the conservative bull scenario. Gold likely contracts over the next 25 years. You put a probe on an asteroid with trillions of dollars of gold. I mean, there's so much gold in this universe. It's plentiful, like sand. Just on this planet, it's a little bit more scarce.
It's scarce, not fixed. And a lot of people don't understand that. Bitcoin's the only fixed asset that I know of in the world, in the galaxy. It's the hardest, soundest money we've ever known. 2/3 of the gold supply has been mined since 1950. So as the price for gold goes up, people find ways to mine it. It becomes more profitable. Technology breakthroughs. Think of what's happening with natural gas in the U.S. with fracking. Now we're a natural exporter. Those breakthroughs can happen with gold.
We're an oil exporter, and in 2000s they thought peak oil in the U.S. had happened, and now we export, and we have
no technological breakthrough can change the supply of Bitcoin.
It does not expand with an increase of demand or technology. It just doesn't happen. There's no commodity like that ever. First of its kind.
So in 2013, when you guys came to the first Bitcoin conference and you were the keynote, what was that like? How many people were there? Did you guys feel like maybe we're crazy? Like, what were you thinking?
I would say there'd maybe be like this row. And that was it.
There was like a few hundred people in the entire conference, booths, convention center combined. So it wouldn't even come close to filling up this room. Maybe, like Cameron said, the first row. I mean, we thought it was crazy not to be there. We sort of know this is the biggest secret, best kept secret in the world,
hiding in
that
plain
nobody
sight.
is talking about. But like, this is always going to happen. We always thought that sitting here on this stage with 20,000 people coming to Miami was always a when, not an if.
And today it's like bigger than a Comic-Con. I mean, talk about mainstreaming and global and everything. But back then, There was no license in the US. 95% of the volume was going through Mt. Gox, which is a magic card exchange that pivoted into Bitcoin in Tokyo. We bought a lot of Bitcoin there. Then we built our own cold storage system and flew around the country and stored it in safety deposit boxes. And we wanted to like build Gemini to sort of make it easier to buy, sell, and store Bitcoin and give access, like an on-ramp. But there was no license. The CFTC hadn't opined. The SEC hadn't opined. There's no New York, trust company licenses.
The IRS had guidance. So it was a complete question mark. Is Bitcoin going to be outlawed in the US? What is Bitcoin? Thankfully, Bitcoin's considered a commodity like gold through an enforcement action by the CFTC called the coin flip action, which has been upheld by the courts. But there was no precedent. There was a big question
And that
mark.
came 2 years later, in 2015. So it wasn't like around the corner. It was like years later where some of this guidance and clarity came about. And the hardest thing when we were starting Gemini was getting a bank relationship. That was one of the biggest challenges. And we went to store some of our private keys in banks. They actually rejected us because they saw our name and they saw Bitcoin and they said, oh, we don't want any of that. So we had to kind of like break in a little bit, like a reverse bank heist, so you can store your stuff in a bank vault. Kind of ironic, and that's actually chronicled pretty well in the Bitcoin Billionaires book, which talks about that.
So, yeah, it was just completely unknown. It's amazing how far we've come. You know, we have legal jurisdiction around Bitcoin. We understand it's money. Courts say it's money. It's like gold. So much has happened, and the infrastructure that's been built. You know, you can go to reliable exchanges and buy this stuff. You can get, Ledger Nano wallets and all these great things that just didn't exist in our experience buying Bitcoin early on.
I think what's so interesting about you guys is you have a infrastructure that you built after that 2013 conference, right, to service a lot of your own needs. You've now brought it to retail and institutional investors. Talk a little bit about, over the last year or so, there's obviously been incredible kind of macroeconomic chaos, uncertainty, and manipulation. What are you hearing in the circles of friends or executives that maybe people here wouldn't be privy to? Like, what are the things that people are saying behind closed doors, either positive or negative about the space, and why are so many billionaires and family offices and large institutions now coming in?
Yeah, so the biggest skeptics in the world, dyed-in-the-wool Wall Streeters, all came running back to Bitcoin during the pandemic when the markets melted for about that week, and then people kind of got above water. People saw what was happening with the US dollar. They can do simple math at the Fed's balance sheet. They see it ballooning. They see the stimulus, and they know what's been happening even up to the pandemic. We've been on the turbo button, printing, debt piling up. We've got to smash the turbo button to get through the pandemic or the lockdown. So the gold 2.0 story really resonated. The hedge against inflation. Bitcoin is the world's best hedge against inflation. It's the hardest, soundest money. It's better, it's harder than gold. And so all of those folks that would have been calling Bitcoin a fraud, skeptical, oh, I'm not really into technology, I don't get it, they saw what was happening with fiat regimes. The US dollar is the ultimate shitcoin, like the euro. Everything will fit.
Bitcoin's biggest booster is the Fed.
Yeah.
Okay.